What's up guys, Fi here with my top 5 mid laners for patch 4.15. Now mid lane is a bit different, okay, so I could probably name around 15 champions right now who are all good in their own way. So even if your favourite champion isn't on this list, don't let it stop you playing it. Now this list is made up of my opinion, other Diamond 1 players, and also win rates from various regions, and are the best if all you care about is winning. Now for the first time, I'm also going to give each champion a kind of title that reflects their playstyle, and it will hopefully give you a basis from which to pick who would be best for you. So at number 5 then, we're going to jump straight into Xerath, and he is the king of poke. Now he has a lot of damage, he's good throughout the game, a stun, a slow, long range poke and a crazy ultimate, well I guess if you actually manage to hit it. Now the mid lane is really important in the game right now, it's kind of where a lot of the action is based around, and so it gives you a lot of room to really control the game, and these champions all do it in slightly different ways. Now Xerath has a pretty good lane phase. If he hits a lot of his Qs and especially combined with his stun, he can easily get a few kills and really snowball from there. The good thing about snowballing as a poke champion is that you can just force the enemy team away from things like dragons or towers and take things for free. In reality, having a poke comp is the safest way to win a game. You don't really look to fight, you look to poke first, force them away and force them to engage on low health if they don't want to back off. The other good thing about him is that even if your team are pretty bad, and let's face it, this is going to happen sometimes, it's really hard to push into and chase a Xerath because he can just poke you and then turn. Mid game you easily have the potential to Q someone twice and then ultimate them for a kill, and like, how do you honestly beat that? Well, the answer is you have to hard engage. That is Xerath's weakness, and that engage is something that isn't really found in solo queue, so go figure. Now in every build section I'm going to give you viable items against AP and also against AD, and it's up to you to take a mix of whatever's best. In general you want to get some cooldown reduction first and then just a ton of damage, and that's what to always keep in mind when deciding what to buy. Remember that you don't always have a lot of time to poke, so you really need to make sure that the poke you do get off hurts, and that's why Deathcap and Void Staff are core items on him. So next up we have Syndra, and she is a huge powerhouse right now. Like, she could easily be further up this list, but honestly everyone on this top 5 is strong anyway. Now Syndra has one of the highest bursts at level 6, she punishes mistakes incredibly hard, she can kill pretty much anyone instantly and win most lane matchups as well. The good thing about Syndra is that, okay, so most mid laners damage either comes from burst or persistent damage. For example, Ryze is persistent, whereas Annie is burst, but Syndra actually has a mix of both. Now her Q is a really low cooldown with Athene's, and on the other hand, her ultimate combo will probably just one-shot someone. This really means that not only can she use everything on one person and remove them from the fight, but she stays a big threat afterwards as well. And that's just her damage. I mean, she also has a really high range and duration stun, which is her only safety mechanic, but also a great way of engaging and catching people out. If the enemy jungler decides to camp your lane, then there isn't really much you can do apart from ward, and you'll probably end up dying quite a lot after you've blown your flash. The way Syndra has a huge impact is by landing great stuns, often to catch people out, either to start a fight or just in the enemy jungle to secure an objective. Now build wise there are a few variations. You can either play the let's teamfight build or the let's absolutely ruin one person's day. The teamfight build focuses on cooldown reduction and constantly throwing out your Q, whereas the other just blows one person up and hopes that is enough to win the fight. Another thing to note is that Syndra's base damage is pretty high, and when you combine that with the fact that she is very vulnerable, it's not always a bad idea to get an early Zhonya's to make sure you don't instantly get focused down. So third on this list is Fizz. I'm sure you guys aren't too surprised honestly, because he's been terrorizing solo queue for a while now. This guy is the ultimate all-in assassin. So if you're ahead, then you will literally one-shot people, literally one-shot them with your combo, but if you're behind then you are useless as you have to dive into your death basically. The reason Fizz is above Syndra is purely because I think that a good Fizz is more effective than a good Syndra. Now Syndra can get shut down and it's not hard to deny Fizz CS, but Even when he's behind, if he gets those few kills, which he is very likely to do, then he'll get right back into the game. Considering he is able to one-shot tanks with his rotation, he is one of the scariest solo queue champions to ever face right now. Fizz does have a pretty rough lane phase, but he has a ton of mobility with his Q and E, a long range, high damage ultimate, and is definitely someone you don't want to face check. Fizz arguably snowballs harder than anyone on this list just because he is so face roll. Once you get a few kills, you can probably 100-0 anyone, and the way he takes over games is by buying a sweeper and a few wards. You ward up the enemy jungle, you sweep the bush that you're standing in, and you wait for someone to come into your trap. Like, his mobility also means that he can get to other lanes before you can really react, I guess. And he's really good at turning losing games around because of his ability to one-shot the Fed carry. Now, builds are pretty standard for Fizz, honestly. You don't really need mana regen or cooldown reduction, so you want to aim for that Lich Bane as soon as possible. Getting his Zhonya's next is normally always a good idea because he does have to jump right into the fight to be effective. You combine that with a blue buff and a blue pot and your combo will be back up again after diving in and using it, which is a really good tool to have. The number 2 spot on this list is going to be Ahri, and some of you might be surprised, but she is like the safe assassin of the mid lane right now. She has a pretty high win rate in solo queue across a ton of regions, and the biggest reason is because she has a very low risk, high reward playstyle. So to show you what I mean, let's just think about a fight with Ahri, right? You ultimate in, you try to charm. If it misses, then you ult out and there's no harm done. But if it does hit, then you probably got yourself a kill. Now this is the thing, there is a big difference between an average Ahri with little impact in the game and a good Ahri who controls the entire game. It's actually really tough to stop Ahri once she gets going because if she's good then you'll constantly be 4v5 with someone on your team dead. This makes taking any objectives or getting any control of the game insanely difficult. Ahri has a great lane phase and great mid to late game damage, an ultimate that lets you dash across an entire screen, a heal with a passive, a charm to catch people, and even a really good wave clear. I'm actually going to release a commentary soon showing you what I mean, but she is the best person on this list to make plays with, and that's the reason she has a good win rate and is number 2. Now build wise, she is very similar to Syndra. You can either have a teamfight build with cooldown reduction or just blow someone up. Deathfire's Grasp is definitely better if you're ahead early and you want to snowball. This is really the item that makes you able to catch anyone and delete them, whereas if you're behind or just kind of even, then the other route is probably going to be better. So number 1 we have Yasuo, and some people may not agree with this, but I think that's mainly because he's always banned, so you don't really feel the impact of him that he has in the game on a daily basis. Now Yasuo does it all, that's why I'm going to call him the all-rounder. You'll notice the common theme with most of these mid laners is how well they can take over a game, and that's mostly by getting picks, but Yasuo is kind of different. Yasuo can get picks, right, and he is very good 1v1, but he also excels in teamfights, and this is one of the reasons he is so deadly. He doesn't even need to get the picks and snowball the whole game, he can just make sure he is farmed and strong and then dominate in a teamfight. This kind of brings me to the next thing I want to say, and that is you don't even need to be fed. You just need 1 or 2 core items and you'll actually be really strong. And not only will you be strong though, you'll be able to wreck team fights with your ult, and the best thing is that you just keep getting stronger and stronger the later the game goes. Your win wall is a great way of protecting your team or winning duels, and the mobility your E gives you makes outplaying people pretty easy too. Now in my opinion, he is the only champion in the mid lane that should be banned all the time right now. He'll farm up a storm, he'll probably kill his lane opponent, and then he'll start killing other people, and he can just take over a whole game very quickly. The build for Yasuo is pretty standard and revolves around a set core of items that you'll just want to rotate in and out depending on the game situation. Now to give you a general idea, so Shiva is probably always first, Blade makes you a better duelist, Infinity Edge makes you better in teamfights, and Bloodthirster kind of does a mix of the both. Now as I said at the start of this video, there are a huge number of mid laners right now who are good. For example, Talon, Zed, Orianna and Katarina to name a few, but I don't want to go into detail on all of them. Just as a kind of side note as well, I'm thinking of starting to offer coaching again now that my YouTube is a job for now. There'll be a bit of info down in the comments and also on my Facebook page if you're interested, but obviously just shoot me a message and we can have a chat. Now that's all for now, but I'll catch you in my next video.